This week's parsha VaYishlach begins after Yaakov had already returned to Canaan. His first act upon returning was to immediately send messages to his brother Esav, who was in Seir Edom, in order to, quote, find favor in his eyes. The messengers returned to Yaakov to tell him that his brother is already coming towards him, accompanied by 400 men. Upon hearing Esav's response to his messages, Yaakov became alarmed and hurriedly prepared to meet his brother, hoping and praying for the best of outcomes, yet preparing for the worst. Still, it begs the question, what was Yaakov thinking when he sent messages to Esav to announce that he's back? Shouldn't it have been obvious that his return to Canaan would not escape his brother's notice? And even if it hadn't attracted his attention, shouldn't Yaakov have realized that sending messages to Esav, informing him that he's back, would cause Esav to come out and confront him? Especially considering that, putting it mildly, Yaakov had left Canaan not on the best of terms with Esav. Let's try to put ourselves in Yaakov's shoes and see his quandary. When Yaakov returned to Canaan, he knew that he would need to take that calculated risk and re-establish contact with Esav. Simply being in Canaan necessitated contact with Esav, as just family obligations would cause them to meet sooner or later. Better to establish contact as soon as possible and get any unpleasantries over with sooner rather than later. However, it was more than just that. As we saw from last week's parsha and from his message to his brother, Yaakov now owned a tremendous amount of property and livestock. As we saw by Avram and Lot, due to their abundant possessions, the land was unable to sustain them both. So too, due to their extensive possessions, Yaakov and Esav would not be able to coexist and stay together, or at least close by in the same land. Meaning, both brothers cannot be in close proximity to their father Yitzchak and family at the same time. Now that Yaakov had returned to Canaan, in order to prevent any unpleasant surprises, he needed to deal with these issues before anything else. As such, he decided to send messengers to Esav to inform him that he had returned to Canaan with a lot of possessions, and hoped that they can come to an agreement as to their living arrangements in the land. Esav's reaction of coming to meet him with 400 battle-hardened men was the worst possible scenario imaginable, and struck great fear in Yaakov as it looked like Esav was coming to attack rather than greet, negotiate, and settle differences. In response, Yaakov hurriedly prepared himself, his family, and his possessions for a possible devastating attack. As it turned out, when Esav arrived, at least outwardly, they reconciled and came to an understanding for the future. Whether Esav truly meant it or not, we do not know. We can only speculate. What we do know is that when the Torah later recounts Esav's family lines, the Torah tells us that Esav had understood the main issue at hand. So much so that Esav even voluntarily left the land and moved his family to Seir because of the great possessions that both he and Yaakov possessed. Yaakov was not trying to shy away from controversy. To the contrary, there were important issues that needed to be dealt with right away, and he wanted to address them with dignity and respect, even if it meant a tense encounter with his brother. Shabbat Shalom.